Dr. Lopez and the staff of the Center for Behavioral Health Statistics and Quality Branch, it is truly great to be in your virtual presence in your inaugural leadership professional development sessions. You know, developing a staff or entity or organization is an investment that's required, that pays off threefold. Every leader of an organization has an obligation to invest in the professional development of their workforce. So it gives me great pleasure to be here with your inaugural professional leadership development to kick it off. So today, what I intend to discuss are some leadership traits that are foundational and requirement in any field of endeavor, regardless if you have a PhD, a JD, or MD, or no D. These carry over, and they are a must-have necessity in leadership development. And you know, I would say over the last 30 years, I've seen some of the best leadership styles that has been executed. And then on the flip side of that, I would also say over the last 30 years, I've seen some of the not so good leadership styles that have been executed. But I will tell you, I have learned from both. But I would say you want to learn from those good leadership styles that are executed, and not so much from those not so good leadership styles. But it was still a learning curve. Stressful in nature, but still a learning curve. So a little bit about myself. I am a veteran, and I've had the pleasure of a lifetime to serve this great nation we call the land of the free and the home of the brave, America. Yes, only in America could this poor country kid grow up and be able to travel around the world serving this country and protecting our democracy. So it's been my esteemed pleasure and privilege to serve this great nation. Now, today, I want to talk to you all about what I call the foundational leadership traits. The good stuff that everyone must continue to self-develop amongst themselves. And that's the kicker here. You could be the CEO or you could be the office clerk. And what I want to discuss today, these are the requirements that everyone within any organization, you have to self-develop yourself. Because you know, you have leaders on top of you, you have leaders laterally to you, that they're going to always do their job and give you the professional development. But there comes a time when we have to maintain our own personal and professional development. And so what I want to talk about today is things that everybody, regardless, you can be the CEO or an office clerk, that is required. And you can use these things to self-develop yourself. You know, and I call these the good stuff. And I'm reminded when I was getting ready to retire from the Marine Corps. And I went to see my doctor for my final physical so I could be discharged and be able to retire. And I was surprised when the doctor discussed that I should get some more proper vitamin C's. And proper vitamin C, I was a little taken back because I'm like, vitamin C? Because he saw that, hey, I don't think you're getting a proper amount of vitamin C. You know, I'm like, hold on, for the last 3 decades, I've been physically fit in the gym, and by nature of the profession that I was a part of for almost 3 decades, I thought I was taking care of that area. So, and I was somewhat low perplexed. And so, but the vitamin C is the good foundational stuff that everyone's body constantly should sustain. Like, hey, vitamin C, after all, vitamin C, it boosts our body immunity. It helps manage high blood pressure. It helps prevent iron deficiency. And it may even lower your risk of heart disease. And that's just to name a few. So now, with knowing all of that, so you can see why I say vitamin C is the good stuff. Because all those things that, I just blabbed off of what vitamin C would do for us. So let's say, as leaders, what if we had the vitamin C for leadership? And that's what I would also call the good stuff in leadership development that we all should focus on. In our personal leadership development, I reference the vitamin C's of leadership. And these leadership traits, they will promote and also protect your reputation. They are character, competence, confidence, courage, challenges, commitment, and finally, compassion. So, starting first, which probably is what I would say is probably the most valuable or the most important, because this one, it transcends all the rest. It's called character. Character is the acme of true leadership. We need leaders of the highest of character. Just think about that. We, the led, we want our leaders to be those of the highest of character. Low in maintenance, high in performance output, and most importantly, we want them to be a team player. True character is the noble quality of integrity. I believe character is one of the greatest things that one can leave their family members and friends and also emulate to those around them. A pastor friend of mine once told me the best sermon is not the sermon that's necessarily preached, but it's the sermon that's emulated, that's walked out, that's shown, because people can see that. So character. And then you ask yourself, the closest people get to you, do they gain or decrease respect for you? You ever bought something based upon a flashy commercial, but when you actually had it in your possession, you saw it firsthand and up close and didn't like it? Individual character should always be worked upon and focused upon executing the hard right over the easy wrong. In true character, remember people that we have influence over, that they watch us, especially, if we're in a leadership capacity, they watch us. And they especially hear, can you execute the hard right over the easy wrong? And that's where moral decisions come into play, which emulates your character. You express the type of character that you have. So character is so important. And be mindful, never allow charisma to get in front of your character. Your character should always take center stage. Be mindful that success does not always equate to character too. Good character will protect your reputation. Because if you take care of your character will also take care of your reputation. I have witnessed that. I've observed that firsthand, and I can tell you that is the truth. If you take care of your character will take care of your reputation. Not in the reverse. Just because you take care of your reputation and don't take care of your character. You can't do it in that order. Take care of your character and automatically reputations follow you. So take care of your character. A Pew poll was conducted, and it said 70% of the respondents stated that they want leaders of high character. Everyone wants to know that their leader will have high character traits and know that the leader will ensure that there's a level playing field that's consistent with meritocracy, meaning that I'm going to be evaluated, you're going to be evaluated based upon your performance. That means that I know as long as I perform based upon what the skill sets, the requirements are, I should get the nod. The best person should get the nod based upon meritocracy. Now that was done in a Pew poll. 70% of the respondents say, they want their leaders to be of high character. So character is the first vitamin C. And we use that as the first kickoff points. So character leads us to the next vitamin C, which I call competence. Competence is knowing what to do and proficient in doing your prescribed duties required to complete your job. Being competent is vitally essential and a critical part of leadership for the leader. Character minus competence equates to ineffectiveness. Let me say that again. Character minus incompetence. Character minus competence equates to ineffectiveness. That means you can have character, but if you're not a competent leader, then you are ineffective. You got good character, but you can't get the job done, mission sets. And because as a leader, now we want you to have character, but we want you to know your job too, because there's so many that you have to influence. And at the end of the day, it's all about productivity. Let's face it. You can have all this activity going on, but if you don't have productivity at the end of the day, that's ineffectiveness. So character minus competence equates to ineffectiveness. And we don't want to have that. And that's not a part of competence, because competence go hand in hand with character. The investor Bernie Madoff, he had competence. I think we would say he was competent because he was good in driving that fund. But what he did to people showed that he lacked character. So what I prefaced earlier, that first you got to have character. And then competence comes along. You want to have competence. But if you lack character, which we would equate to Bernie Madoff, he was competent, but his character skills probably was not where it should have been. So, you got to have character. All right. So competent leaders, they strive to make sure that their core leadership principles, their ethics, and their traits are sound in this foundation. Because we're talking about the foundation here. Because it's like building a house. If the foundation is not established, is not built right, then when you get to the top, it's going to start to come down. And if the foundation is not solid, it's shaky. That structure is shaky. Any little wind come by can blow it down. So I think you get the point to here as a metaphor. We want to have a solid foundation. And so these are, as I preferenced earlier, these are foundational traits that you want to have these built on a solid foundation. That's why I'm referring to them as the foundational traits: character, competence. And so competent leaders, they are spotted miles away. And they are not insecure in their leadership. And they do not acquiesce to the status quo, especially when it comes to execute the hard right over the easy wrong. Meaning that, competent leaders, you spot them a mile away. You want to follow them because, number one, they emulate character, and we know that they know the business. They show that they know the business. They execute the business. So we spot them a miles away. And one thing I know that people spot phony folks miles away too. So but competent leaders, they are spot miles away. And one thing about competent leaders, they don't acquiesce to the status quo. They just don't go along to get along. And they don't acquiesce to say, okay, things ain't going my way. So they're going to stand their ground and they're going to execute the hard right over the easy wrongs. And when tough times come, that's a valuable, you want that. Because you know they're going to do the right thing and they're going to make the right decision and always come out on the side of right. You know, what we call the moral dilemmas. When you come to a moral dilemma, they're going to do what's right. So competency. Competent leaders, they don't acquiesce to the status quo. And another thing about competent leaders, they pick other smart leaders and they listen to them. And competent leaders will always be needed and desired. Competence gives birth to the next vitamin C trait, which I call confidence. So we've talked about character, we've talked about competence. Now we want to discuss confidence. Confidence is the ability in oneself or someone else's ability to perform. Full confidence begets being secure in oneself or another's abilities, having wisdom from experiences gained, learning attention to detail, and the ability to execute with attention to details. That's confidence. Confidence should also keep oneself grounded, and that's important. Having confidence, it should keep the leader grounded because I have been here before. You're confident in your abilities. Even if you see someone else that may be a little stronger, a little sharper, or more knowledgeable, you're not insecure because you are confident in yourself. And then you go into, well, if I see that there's somebody else that's a little bit more smarter, knowledgeable, I'm going to tap into them. I want to pick their brain. So that's one thing about confidence. You're not insecure. You're willing to continue to learn. You know, the great motivational speaker Zig Ziglar once said that you want to be green and growing and not ripe and stagnant, meaning that you are willing to learn. You stay grounded, and that you meet somebody that may not have your experience, but they may have the correct answer, that you're willing to accept their advice and you're willing to learn from them. So, but I'm also reminded of the story of the Wizard of Oz in dealing with confidence, because I think it depicts what confidence is all about. And just to jog your memory on the characters in the Wizard of Oz, you had Dorothy. You know, Dorothy, she was a native from Kansas. A tornado came reeling through Kansas, and Dorothy fell into what we call the land of the Oz, and with her dog Toto. But Dorothy, she had to go see the all-knowing Oz. But she had to traverse the yellow brick road to get to the city of Oz, to get to Emerald City to see the Oz. And as she searched out the yellow brick road, on her way, she ran into these three characters. First was, on this journey, was the Tin Man. The Tin Man was encouraged by Dorothy, to come see Oz with her. Because the Tin Man, what he wanted was a heart. And Dorothy convinced the Tin Man, well, if you come with me, we're going to Emerald City to see the Oz. Maybe the Oz can give you a heart. That was the Tin Man. But also, along with the Tin Man, she ran into the lion. And the lion, what he wanted was courage. Now, the lion, he was convinced by Dorothy that, hey, if you come with me to Emerald City to see the Oz can give you courage because the lion lacked courage. Also, meeting the Tin Man, meeting the lion, they also ran into the Scarecrow. Dorothy, once again, she convinced the Scarecrow, hey, we're going to Emerald City to see the Oz because I'm trying to get back to Kansas. I got the Tin Man, he wants a heart. We got the lion, he wants courage. But the Scarecrow wanted a brain. So Dorothy convinced him to come to Emerald City to see the Oz. And as they traversed the yellow brick road, we realized they already had these things. They proved. The Tin Man proved that he had heart. The lion proved that he had courage. And the Scarecrow proved that he had a brain. based upon the various scenarios that would beset them, based upon their analytical and intuitively critical thinking, they proved they had each one of the things that they desired to want to get from the odds. They proved that. But what we realized was they lacked confidence. Those are oftentimes members within our workforce. They lack confidence. And it's our job to make sure that we give them these confidence. And we do various, things to assist, teach, mentor, coach them in developing those confidence. And they emulate that by reaching success, different mission sets that you give them. And they are able to correctly get to those mission sets. And they develop confidence over a period of time. So in that story, we know they had, in the end, they had all of those things that we thought that they lacked, or they thought that they lacked, they had. But we know that we realized that what they really lacked was confidence. So, confidence in a leader, that is so important. We want our leaders to have that, trait of being a confident leader. You can look around America, and you can not even America, you can look around within the Department of Health and Human Service, and you can pick out your confident leaders because they stand out. They stick out in the crowd based upon all the things that I just read to you about what a competent leader is. And so that moves us to the next vitamin C for our leadership development, which is courage. Courage is so important, and it must be developed on all fronts. And this is where everyone has a leadership capacity, and courage is executed through action. Everybody can do this right here. And this courage is executed through action. I have taken the liberties to break down courage into 4 areas that I have personally had to engage in. And so I'm taking courage and I'm breaking courage down to 4 types. What I would call boardroom courage, battlefield courage, peer-to-peer courage, and self-courage. Again, battlefield courage, boardroom courage, peer-to-peer courage, and self-courage. So the first one I want to talk about is something that we all know about, and it quickly comes to mind, which we call battlefield courage, also known as physical courage. This is quite simple. Fire under courage, being equipped to react to it with experience due to your training. And most of the times this is easy because we train for this. We train for battlefield courage, aka also known as physical courage. We train for this stuff. In our mission sets, whatever our mission is, we train for that. So we're prepared to have physical courage. Now, and I often thought physical courage was the easier type of courage because we do reps and sets and we train. So when the time comes to execute, we just go into execute mode. When those things before us, we just go into execute mode because we train. So me personally, I've always thought the physical courage, battlefield courage, was the easiest because it was something I always trained for. However, some folks may not see it that way. Some folks may think physical courage could be the hardest. But physical courage, you have to prepare yourself for physical courage. So I'm in an office type setting, and I know there's decisions that have to be made, unpopular decisions that may have to be made. I need to do decision games that way that prepare me so when the time comes and I have to step up and execute, I can do just that. So battlefield courage, also known as physical courage. Remember I prefaced this where courage is executed through action. That means you have to do something. So that's battlefield, also known as physical courage. The next type of courage is what I would call boardroom courage, also known as moral courage, meaning that you have to have the candorism to tell, mainly is folks that are in positions of authority that's above you, you have to be able to tell them that, okay, this is not a good idea. Your plan really doesn't cut the mark, and here is why. Now, you would think moral courage, you would think that should be easy to do, but that is very difficult because oftentimes most folks, they're concerned about what could be the outcome. Well, my superior may hold a grudge. This could be the outcome of this right here. I could get a low mark on my performance appraisals. The big thing, I could maybe be shown the door. They may hide behind something else and say it was this, but because I gave my viewpoint. So moral courage is you have to have the candorism, being able to be candor and to speak truth to power. So we call that boardroom courage, also known as moral courage. And you know, that moral courage sometimes is difficult. And because, you know, we have to work on ensuring that our moral compass is set to true north. And that moral compass, keeping that moral compass set to true north is something that we all have to practice on. You know, it just don't happen by osmosis. You know, remember I said executing the hard right over the easy wrong? That's when moral courage comes into play. And the next type of courage is peer-to-peer courage. This is when you have your peer that's laterally, horizontal, your peers, your co-workers, being able to tell them, hey, look, I don't think that's a good idea. Sometimes we don't want to intervene because we don't want to be perceived as, oh, I don't want them to think I'm the goody two-shoes or I'm hating on them. And sometimes, you know, we don't say anything like, well, I'm just going to mind my business. They may try to make like I'm, you know, trying to not like their success or whatever, so we don't say anything. But we have an obligation. You have a duty. If you see something, make corrective action with your peers. Pull your peer aside and tell them good, wise counsel. You have an obligation. You have an ethical obligation to do that. Now, remember, you want to make sure you maintain some candorism, professionalism when doing that. But I call that peer-to-peer courage. And these things, they don't happen by osmosis. We have to have, remember I said courage is by action. That means there's something that we must do. Which brings us to the last type of courage, which is self-courage. And self-courage is the most important. Here, you must develop your personal courage. You have to identify both your weaknesses and your blind spots, and you have to build on them before they become problems. Now, you will think, well, that's easy to do. My blind spots and my weaknesses, I'm going to fix them. I can fix them. But, you know, it's easier said than done. For some reason, you know, human nature, we know what our weaknesses. We just want to hide them, and we won't let them surface. We'll keep those covered up. But eventually they surface because, you know, problems, I would say bad habits, the more senior you get, as you climb the ladder of success, bad habits, just because you got senior and because you got elevated to another promotion, bad habits don't go away just because you got that promotion. Bad habits, they increase. Now you have a bigger scope, an audience that can see them. So personal courage, you know, you have to work on your weaknesses and your blind spots before they become a problem. I remember being in the military and we would often have some service members that get DUIs. And, you know, what used to drive me crazy was when it was time to hold them accountable for their action, because those are things that we don't do. We have an obligation that, we don't drink and drive. In America, the citizens should have that same obligation. But oftentimes I would hear folks that said, hey, I know such and such been drinking and driving for a long time. But they never took the opportunity to pull them aside and say, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. You probably shouldn't do that. And then that individual knew that, hey, I probably got a drinking problem. I shouldn't be doing these things. But eventually it got out of hand. So that scenario that I just used there, that covered two of the types of courage. One, it covered peer-to-peer courage, and then it also covered this last type of courage that I was talking about, self-courage. Because in self-courage, you have to know your challenges and your weaknesses and your blind spots. Before they grow out of control, you have to fix those things. Because you can say today, it may be a mustard seed, the size of a mustard seed. But next thing you know, it's the size of a pumpkin. And it's too late. Now somebody else got to deal with the situation, fix the problem that got out of control. So personal courage, that means you have to work on yourself. Just like we're doing right here in this session, your inaugural leadership session. These are things that you can work on yourself in developing yourself, because you have to. You can always have leaders that's going to professionally develop, mentor, and coach you, but you have an obligation where you have to personally, professionally develop yourself too. You have to take some time aside and say, all right, this is for my professional development. I'm responsible to bring this to the table in my personal, professional development. So personal courage, I think that's probably of the four types of courages that I laid before you. I think personal courage, because it's something that you can control. It's something that you have access and you control at the end of the day. So we talked about those four types of courage. We talked about boardroom. We talked about battlefield. We talked about peer-to-peer. And we talked about personal courage. Four types of courage that I like to, define them in categories to talk about and equate to our day-to-day evolutions as we go about the business. So the next challenge of the vitamin C's, what I would call challenges. So the next vitamin C is what I would call challenges. Let me be straight with you. Challenges, they're going to come. And I would tell you, challenges don't wait for the storm to come to get prepared. We prepared. We have to plan. We have to mentally prepare. And as a leader, oftentimes in leadership capacity, we love being on the mountaintop. But let me tell you, I would say of the 3 decades that I was in the military, I was probably in leadership roles probably 26 of those 30 years. And I would tell you that we like being on the mountaintop. But let me tell you, the mountaintop, 9 times out of 10, is not where we at on a day-to-day basis. Because challenges come and we have to go down to the valley. The valley is what makes us as leaders too. Even though we like to hang out on the mountaintop, but chances are most of our business is conducted down in the valley. That's where we do the bidding, we do the business of what our organization, our entity is. So those are challenges. And the challenges is where you are made. But you have to be prepared for the challenges. And being prepared, how does one prepare for challenges? Well, being competent. Being competent, having character, having that moral compass set. So that way when the challenges come, you are prepared and you can execute. And folks want leaders that when the challenges do show up on the doorstep, they can just execute and get us through. Just get us through the challenges. So challenges is the next vitamin C that we got to make sure we talk about and we prepare for. So challenges. Moving to the next one, vitamin C is commitment. Commitment is something you can be the CEO or the clerk. Everybody has to be committed. You have to be committed to the organization or the entity. You have to be committed to your responsibilities. Now, there's a difference between doing leadership and being leadership. Now, because sometimes people get them confused. Well, I'm just doing leadership. I'm just showing up and I'm checking a box. But commitment requires you to be leadership. Be leadership means that you are all in it. A good example I like to use for commitment, you got a chicken and you got a pig. I would tell you that the chicken is doing leadership, but the pig is being leadership. So, chicken and the pig walking down the street, and there's a sign on the window that says, today's special, bacon and eggs. Bacon and ham and eggs. And so the chicken starts spazzing out, telling the pig, look at the sign, look at the sign. And the pig finally sees the sign and he grabs the chicken and says, grab a hold, relax. All you got to do is just give a donation. You drop an egg and off you go. But to get this bacon and ham, I got to die. I got to be fully committed. I am all in. So commitment. Now that commitment, that means we need our workforce, we need our co-workers, we need everybody to be committed, all in. We need you to be doing leadership, to be leadership, not just doing leadership where I'm checking the box. I don't really care about nobody else. I'm not really a team player. We want our folks to be committed. All in. That means you are being leadership. It means we can depend upon you, we can count on you, and that you're going to do the job for all the right reasons, that you are going to execute the hard right over the easy wrong. So commitment, we need, be the pig in commitment. That means you're all in, you're committed, you're here for the organization, the entity. You are all in. So commitment. Now, this brings me to the final vitamin C, which is compassion. Compassion is so important. Every leader must develop compassion. Now, I can tell you that compassion sometimes, it takes a while. Because what I have seen in young leaders, they are ready to execute. The book says this, this, and this. And I'm going to do this, this, and this. But sometimes you got to have compassion. That means you have to have empathy for people. You don't necessarily, even though you have the power to execute them, but because you have compassion and you empathize with the human nature side of being in leadership, that okay, I'm going to reprimand you, but these are the things I'm going to coach and mentor so that way we can set you back on the right track. Now, we're not saying you shirk the responsibilities of accountability, but compassion means that, hey, look, okay, I'm not going to execute you, even though I have the authority to. I'm not going to take it to this level. I'm going to just, okay, we're going to reprimand you, but I have the compassion to know that, hey, in other words, I can allow you to live to fight another day. Compassion. And you would be surprised, people will follow you because they know you care, because you have compassion. And even the hardest of leaders must have compassion. Compassion is one of the most important requirements of the vitamin C's. Compassion. Having compassion, having empathy for your fellow man or your fellow woman, your fellow co-worker. So compassion is so important. The vitamin C's. Now, in closing here, I want to share a quick story with you all, which encompasses all the vitamin C's that I've laid out and discussed with you all. And so I was still in the military. And I worked for a general officer, and we had a day trip from Washington, D.C. down to Huntsville, Alabama. So we were going down to Alabama to look at a piece of equipment that the Israelis used often, and we were interested in buying it. So we went down there to look at it. And so if you know anything about Huntsville, Alabama, they call it Rocket City. And if you ever go down to Alabama in the month of May and June, then you know it's triple-digit degree heat. So we were down, took an early morning flight, went down to Alabama, and we were observing this piece of equipment all day. Triple-digit heat, so we were pounding water. We were just drinking water because it was so hot. We were drenched. And then at the end of the day, we pretty much rushed to get back to the airport and get on our flight to come back to D.C. And we got to the airport, like I prefaced earlier, we were drinking a lot of water. And we just had water bottles in our bags. And so we got up to the airport, and as we go through the TSA screening, and we went to the TSA screening, and our bags got detected that we had liquid in our bags. And so, it was like, okay, they stopped us and said, hey, stop. Y'all got to go back through this water in your bags. Because, we were drinking all day. It was hot down in Huntsville, Alabama. So I'm thinking, well, man, just take the water out and dump them out. Y'all can have them. We got to catch this flight. But they didn't do that. And so they made us go all the way back out, get out. They gave us our bottles of waters, and either we had to drink it or just throw them away. So we got rid of the bottles of water, and as we were coming back through the screen a second time to go through the checkpoint, we had the supervisor. He was on shift late that evening. The supervisor, he came out, and the supervisor, he had a green handbook, which is familiar to especially us who are in the military, especially the Marine Corps. He had this green book, and the book was pretty much just like this one right here. It's been around a few days. It was beaten down. And in that book, was synonymous to the Marines. He had the leadership traits and leadership principles in that book. Now, he knew we went back out to dump our water bottles out. Then he came back in and he saw us. He said, hey, I'm a Marine also. And he showed us his book. And this guy was in his late 50s, early 60s. And he did 4 years in the Marine Corps early on in his career, and he got out. And he told us, he said, my entire life after my service with the military, within the Marine Corps, I kept my book with me, and these leadership traits and principles, I live by. And I'm here to tell you that it has got me promoted. It has elevated me in life. I have an influence that people, they seek me out. And he really put perspective. He that day, he demonstrated what character is all about. Because we were two senior individuals coming through the line. He could have just said, no, let them go. But that would be against the policy. And he said, nope, the rules are the rules. Nobody's above the rules. And he put things in perspective. So he was competent in his duties. But most importantly, I got to tell you, he showed us compassion too. He showed us compassion. So all these vitamin C's that are discussed, he emulated those things. And I had to shake his hand and say, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your service to this nation. And thank you for being a good citizen and putting things in proper perspective. Because he didn't have to do that. But it also showed that, hey, all the tools, we have to protect what we earn. And those tools, it showed that, hey, it never left him because it's inside of here. And so I thought that was very valuable for him to do. And it was very important. And so at this time, I'm going to end my discussion, and I'll open the floor for questions as we go into the question and answer period, and we can discuss each one of these vitamin C's that you may have questions about. Character, confidence, competence, courage, challenges, commitment, and compassion. We can discuss these. We'll open the floor for discussions and discussions at length and until you have no further questions.